We'll call to order the regular school board meeting for month of November in the Solon School District. It's our mission to engage every student in opportunities to learn, lead, and grow. Chris, do you want to call the roll?
I will. Wolf.
Here.
Rockholtz.
Here.
Coons is not here yet. Haluska.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Student Representative outgoing Ben Campman. Student Representative incoming Bree Henning.
Here.
Okay, we'll make note when Dan arrives.
Dan messaged me earlier and said he got called into the ER and would be here as soon as he could.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
can't pay attention to the message. Pledge of allegiance.
Always.
Yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Celebration to achievement.
Oh, you do.
Welcome to Brianna Henning. She will be our 2024 students school board representative. So welcome. We're glad to have you on board. Do you want to say any words? I didn't tell you to have to say any words, or you can just wave at us and be ready to jump in next one.
I'm good.
Just, we've mentioned Bree before. She's our first apprentice in the nursing that we started. So she's been working on that. So last year we started it
Yeah, I see it.
and she's been working through that apprenticeship. You're currently part of that. You're working at the Solon Care.
Yeah, I'm working on my hours right now and geriatric specialist class.
Okay, all right. And while you're working, taking class and getting this degree, you're being paid.
Yes.
Yes, so. Quite well. Yes. All right, so also so congratulations there, and then we also want to celebrate, Mike shared some data with us that every year our junior high cross country team goes to a state junior high cross country meet. We had 26 runners, male, female, that went up to that state meet. 22 of them finished in the top 50. We had individual champions. Mac Valstead was an individual champion, and Maylee Schmidt was for girls was an individual champion. Our 7th and 8th grade girls were team champions, and our 8th grade boys finished 3rd at the meet. So congratulations to them. And also Grace Hooper is a junior. She's we have a sharing agreement with City High, and she swims for City High, and she's a state champion in the 50 and the 100 meter free. So in the largest class.
And I guess since last month, we had cross country finished
Boys and girls both qualified high school teams to state.
and did well.
Yes, football team semifinalists. And our volleyball team sub-state qualifiers.
So a very successful fall.
Yes.
And anybody else wants to report on for celebrations achievement? District reports, focus on learning, foreign exchange student presentation.
You want to make introductions or?
Sure. So I got an email pretty late in the summer. It was probably late July, early August. Wanted to know if we'd be able to find somebody to host on tune, and we luckily found a host family. He is staying with the Arthurs. Natalie is a sophomore. I'm not sure. I think they've got. Is there another little brother too? Yeah. Fifth grade. Yeah. So yeah, on tune has been here since what, mid-August? The bus started. The first day of school was your first day in Iowa. I'll turn it over to him and we'll go from there. Go ahead, yeah. Okay.
So my name is Solon. I'm an Asian student from France. So I'm from Clamart, so it's close to Paris. has a population of 55,000 inhabitants. But I went to school in Britain, so I have to work in the morning and study things. So why did I want to be an exchange student? So first of all, discover the world, another country of science and only focus on science. Then live an incredible experience that I will probably remember for the rest of my life. Then I wanted to learn English. That's why I choose an English speaker country, and I choose America. I like the American culture. So the differences and similarities at school. There are a lot of differences. The options, we can't really choose our classes, so we all have the same schedule. So the schedule is the same for everyone. We finish school later, we get finished at 5 or 6 p.m. And we start at the same time. We don't have school sports, so we have to go in the club for sports. We have one class for the whole year, so we don't change classmates for every class. So we are like, well, 30 in the class. The first day of school, people are very nervous because you have 30 people, and if you don't have friends, that's usually about them. And then the classrooms are different. Like each class has a classroom, and the teacher moves, and the students stay in the same room. That's different. And the similarities, lunch is the day and the school very different. Then some challenges in election students now of the low grade and the difference of your children. Then make friends. It's hard when you're like in a new place. And miss home, that I miss home, I miss friends. That's it.
Will you be able to go home for Christmas or can you break? Stay here. It's gonna be easier though with FaceTime and computers.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to be able to see family.
He's got an older brother who's 19 and then a sister who's 13.
Yeah.
Are any of them coming to visit you in the States?
No.
You said that you came here to learn English, but your English is
Very good.
good already. So what, how has your English improved?
It's improved a lot since I left.
Speaking and writing, which portion of it?
Yeah, writing it's okay because we write a lot in school in France, but I never speak English before. So.
Yeah, it was very. I mean, not minimal, but just was much longer to process when you just got here, as opposed to now, so really.
Wow.
Much good.
It's impressive. Good job.
Was that your first experience with football?
Yeah,
Played football.
yeah, I tried it.
He's late for basketball practice too, so we're gonna have it.
Oh.
As soon as he's done, we gotta get back to the high school.
I was gonna ask what you're involved in, but it sounds like you tried football and you're trying some basketball.
Make sure you run track in the spring.
I'm not play soccer.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Soccer is much better than running track. Did I say that? If we take that off the tape, I have to ride with 2 track people tomorrow and I'm gonna hear about track for 3 hours.
3 track people.
We're so happy you're here.
Yeah.
How do you, like last year we had 2 foreign exchange students and so they kind of got to go through a little bit of it together. I don't know how tight they were, but at least when we saw them at the beginning of the year, it was like, I think one of them mentioned it was nice to have somebody else that was kind of going through the same thing. Like maybe your personality and how is it, you know, you kind of mentioned you kind of have to get to know people. How is that bad for you?
I met other Asian students in Iowa this year because of my organism. So I met the Asian students and other from France.
Okay.
So have you taken a class since coming here that you would not have got to take in France, or a class that you really enjoyed that you never thought of?
We work a lot. Here we work with more computers. So I took a class like intro to technology. I've never done that before.
Good. Thanks. Well, we appreciate you coming. Don't want to hold you from basketball practice.
Might be good to have him before the end of the year, before he takes off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He'd be
Wait.
willing to come back.
come back at the end of the school year, talk to us.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you.
Down in our night room,
Yeah.
actually right by Coons.
Oh, okay.
Right across the street.
Okay.
He's doing an amazing job. Coming in and, I mean, he's picking up on stuff really quick.
He's also.
Yeah, sophomore, junior?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, he's not on red.
Okay.
I think he's he might be the bench.
Freshman or sophomore, underclass.
You got your softball freshman basketball was this morning at 6 a.m.
He's a sophomore.
Yeah, all
I gotta
right.
tell you, I'm always, having lived abroad and being thrown into a culture where you don't understand what anybody's saying and stuff, like that's a lot of credit, because he's only,
Yeah.
a teenager.
15, 16, yeah.
It's impressive to see how much they absorb and grow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I've met him before. I think one of his first days, he was I was in the scout family, and he was in scout. So he was also doing scouting and stuff on the weekend as well, so. Keeping him busy. Okay, admin reports, SIAC report, we have a nice big picture of Cassie in our email.
Oh, well, yeah, so,
I'll let you know.
I thought it was funny.
I missed it. It's been a busy day. Both Davis and Josh asked me to give a perspective about how the SIAC meeting went. It was on the 30th. So however many Mondays ago that was. And it was really good, probably one of the better ones that I have sat through in my tenure of being on SIAC committee. Part of that was because we really dove deep into the data. So I appreciated the data report out that had happened. So remember at the board meeting we had last where Josh shared a little bit of what was coming back from the ISAPS data in terms of how proficiency rates were changing over time. And so there was a lot of just workshopping during the actual session itself where they handed out the data and we had going through paperwork and we asked pointed questions. What is the acronym that you used on the chart? The 3 different columns, what do they stand for? What do I?
Oh, KWL.
KWL,
What do you know?
it sounded like a radio station.
Yeah. What do you know?
What do you know?
Want to know, and then what did you learn?
Yeah, what do you know, what do you want to know, and then what do you learn? And so using that mentality, we all at our individual tables walked through what does the data tell us? What do we want to know about the data? And then what are we hoping to learn more about? Or what was our key takeaways? And so there was a lot of cohort tracking that was happening ad hocly through there to say, well, it looks like we are actually moving the needle quite well. The next conversation led the audience through understanding our approach to learning, all the way from kindergarten, early numeracy, early literacy, all the way through what we do at the high school and how we use a lot of different blended learning models to be able to attract and retain and engage students at different levels. And so the key takeaway from that was, here's the data, here's our approach to learning. Yes, we have a lot that we could still improve on and we're continuously trying to improve. But we want you to share this information back with your peer group so that they can understand Solon's approach to ensure that we're meeting student outcomes in a very positive way. And the meeting after meeting is always tough about after everybody goes away, those that want to leave and just get out of there leave, but those that hang around and ask the questions that they were not necessarily really encouraged or felt confident enough to ask as a larger group or stayed later. So who was the individual? Paige, not Paige, that was talking to you around the wellness?
I remember now. At the end,
What is her name?
Ensign,
That was selling at Jillian's table.
yes.
Heidi.
Yes.
Heidi.
Mhm.
Yeah, she was asking a lot more about the wellness, but I don't know what the follow-on
Cause
just
we were.
a reflection from the
Was
conversation
there-
in the meeting.
I'm trying to remember.
Our wellness pillar and the things that we have in place for that?
Yeah, the wellness, yeah, because we dug into the wellness pillar quite a bit. But there was some suggestion. Because I think some of what that led into a little bit was just, I think. Parent involvement and getting more parents engaged in what's actually happening. And being able to provide additional information, like I think, because Jillian was there, so we were talking about literacy, and I think Heidi just kind of jumped right into that piece because it was. What is our approach to literacy and how does that? Align to really honestly the science of reading and the things that we are doing are the science of reading. And we have, Davis has been putting together a tool to show, hey, of all the components of reading, here are the resources that we use, here's the instructional practices that we use that get at each of those things.
Right.
But then part of the conversation was. And what, are there ways that we could get parents involved or do, like we did that night at SIAC, but is there a way to get parents to come and learn more about, hey, here's what we're doing in literacy? And realizing not everyone is gonna show up for that, but those who would be interested to be a part of that and more of a learning. I know when I was in a previous district, long time ago, we actually had a parent university 3 times a year, and we'd have different breakout sessions for parents, and they'd come and learn about what's happening in writing class, or what's happening at the middle school, or what's happening, at the elementary in terms of this project or whatever. So, that was just something that came out of that conversation. But how do we tell our story about what it is that we do and the impact that it's having?
So I thought Josh did a fantastic job of really laying the groundwork for how we approach learning and teaching and how our students are engaging in the different opportunities that we have presented to them. And then you had mentioned Jillian, who is a parent in the community of small children. She has a first grader, and then she has one that might be pre-K or third grade preschool. So she is also an educator, and so she has a cohort of friends that are oftentimes looking to her for my kid's struggling in school, or I don't know exactly how Solon is approaching phonics, for an example. Now she has the data, and she has the understanding about how Solon's approach to it, so she can kind of translate that into her cohort of friends so that they can get a better understanding about what's going on inside schools. And how we approach different philosophies around literacy, for example. And as always, Josh has a very approachable open door policy and invited her to come for a further coffee chat of some sort to continue the conversation. So really looking forward to the next session that we have in February, which is where we invite students. It's a really well attended SIAC committee meeting that we have. We have it 3 times a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, and then once at the end of the year. And then in the fall, or excuse me, in the springtime around February time frame is where we bring in some students and we really get to engage with them. So
We do like a bunch of little mini focus groups. We gather feedback from kids. That's probably the most powerful meeting.
Is that all age levels? Like, are you trying to hit?
7-12.
7-12, we try to hit, yeah.
but there's been a lot of changes in outcome of meeting with the students themselves. For example, scheduling, flexibility and scheduling is scheduling complex. I know that's hard to, I'm looking at you all because I think it's sometimes hard to get on Mr. Thompson's schedule to get your schedule adjusted to fit what you need to do. And so there's always usually feedback of some sort of that kind that is provided during those sessions.
There's several things that we've brought back to the board or made changes with the board support as far as, and like Kathy was saying, a lot of feedback as far as, I didn't, kids saying, my schedule, not only at school, but with Kirkwood, I didn't know these opportunities existed. It'd be nice to have, application help or FAFSA help or this or that. And that's when we went after that position with Kirkwood and we added Katie to an office so that she could really zero in on that specific That's
Great.
probably more of a recent
Mhm.
example of how our student feedback is kind of adjusted and, or given us some direction on, okay, this is what they're telling us they need or where we lack.
Yeah.
As far as improving our
I think
district.
another big one from last year was just the high school transition from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Yeah.
Zach and the leadership team there and peer leaders, I think did some work around that to make kids feel more welcome and prepared and ready to transition in high schools.
Questions for Cassie? So,
It's good. It's good feedback.
good turnout, that's always.
I would not classify as good,
We had the minimum.
We
Yeah,
met
we made the
there.
minimum.
fair. Okay.
We got it for them.
We'll keep working. They did have food this time. And that didn't seem to
Thank
make
you,
it.
Chris.
That would get you the high school
For the
students
snack.
there. Board committee updates. Financial services, Cassie and I have a meeting coming up later this month. We've also, there's some accounts that are dormant that, Pat has identified. You may recall that periodically Pat goes through and looks for accounts that had no activity for a period of years. And then the board then has the authority to close those accounts. And so she's identified a few of those that we're sorting through, and then we'll have something for you guys next month in terms of dealing with those. Capital projects, anything on the capital project side?
Just a little,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, a little further clarity on the finance committee. The meeting that we have on the 27th is with nutrition, BSP and activities. To kind of walk through those particular
To look at where they're at and where they're at.
budgets and see where they're at and see where we need to make adjustments or encourage adjustments accordingly so that we can make good use of those dollars.
Anything on the capital projects standpoint? Kind of between projects right now.
Just know that we've got the public letting for bids. Will be in the Economist on Thursday for the field turf replacement, and those bids are due December 7th. So we'll get rolling on that project. I think in the pay, it'll state that the start date is that Tuesday following Memorial Day. And it's supposed to be wrapped up July 12th, yeah. And then as far as the transportation, we've decided to put the internal, the offices and all that stuff on hold. It came in way extravagant, way beyond budget. But we are moving forward with the concrete and the canopy on the outside. And so we'll need to get together, maybe even meet down at the transportation office and just look at how couple options. Do we want to hold that internal till we get some other projects done to see what money we have left over? Or do we just want to go in and simplify the project to bring the cost way down? So those are some conversations, and I think it might be best if we meet down at the office so we can look at the original plan and then be in that space. I took Chris down there earlier just to kind of, this is kind of, how can we simplify this and maybe move forward later on, but that's where we're at with capital projects. So we got two in the mix right now and just holding on the others.
Nothing from governance, other than we do have board meeting tonight, so Dan's hoping to make it for that. He's on his way. And then strategic planning committee. Anything on the,
Not really. But Josh and I and Davis meet pretty regularly, and we had just a really good brainstorming session, I thought, last week. Consider some innovative ways in which we could bring some concepts, and I think Josh and I are gonna go visit
I will be.
Iowa
Check
Big
it out.
sometime in the future.
Mhm.
Don't know when
Somewhere.
exactly, it's on our list. Just to kind of take a more innovative strategic lens. And outlook about what we can do to continue to move. In a. In a
Competency.
Competency-based, yeah.
competency-based learning, project-based learning. How do we set our kids up for success to address some of those strategic goals that we have for portrait undergraduate on our strategic plans? So what does critical thinking really do to how we approach teaching and learning inside, particularly the high school? As we set our kids up for success.
And you already put it aside, which is it's one of your areas, so we already have that, so that's great.
That covers
That covers a lot of that.
strategic.
First, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Next up is the consent agenda. They need to get pulled out. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Wolf,
Second.
second by roll calls. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Action items, work. First, we have second reading of board policy 705.1, so related to 705.1. Davis, I know we tasked you with kind of going off and chatting with the attorney and getting some feedback on some of the limits that are in there. Do you want to share with us kind of where we're at?
I did do some exploration, we've got it, we moved, let's see, I think it's currently set at 15 and we're requesting to move it to 25 as far as allowing me to move forward on projects and purchases that are 25 or less. Right now it's 15 or less without first prior board approval. I explored some other districts. I saw a variety. A lot were 25. I saw a variety that were higher. I inquired with our attorney on a couple of those. She recommended that we stick to the plan, the original first reading with 25 and the 50 and things like that. So that would be as we read it, the first, I would make that recommendation and I ran it by Danielle and she would concur that that's probably a good spot. Yep.
Did she give you an indication of why she was most comfortable staying there?
A district that I inquired about, she said they actually, what did they, what's that? It was way up there.
It was like odd, like
She said-
81,000.
She goes, I
Yeah.
don't like the way they're interpreting the law and
Mhm.
it would just be stickier and harder to defend. And it's like, I
Mhm.
want to always put you in a situation where
Mhm.
you're most comfortable.
Well, we're flexible on it too, that'll avoid some of the, just upping that to 25 will help.
It will help a lot.
And if it's something bigger, we can always come together pretty quick.
And that's an advantage too, if we need to schedule meetings in between or something like that for some approval, we can do that. So. Based upon my conversation with Danielle, I would say, the first reading, I wouldn't change any of the numbers from the first reading.
Any questions?
And this policy will too, when approved, then that's the final piece that, that safety grant needs
Mhm.
so that we can be reimbursed since it's federal dollars.
Let me go back to the agenda. If I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. I'll make a motion to approve the second reading board policy 705. That's related,
Mhm.
purchasing and bidding, so. As presented.
Second.
Motion by Alaska, second by Wolf, discussion. It was good to look into why the numbers are what they are. It's always valuable to gain insight on why we're choosing particular numbers rather than just to see what everybody else is using. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now have the first reading of a new board policy, and he wants to.
Yeah, this is, we have student, discipline policy. This edition, 503 R1 would be an added policy to what we have, in addition to what we have, to be compliant with House File 604 that Governor Reynolds signed back in May. So new law. ISB put this policy together. There were a few areas in yellow that we were left to define. We worked on that as an admin team, and then we ran it by our attorney, who helped us clean it up a little bit. So this has been cleaned up by Allers Law. And so again, this is just added policy that's coming out of House File 604, keep us compliant and in line with new legislation.
So that wasn't spurred by the Cedar Rapids deal. This is back in May.
Correct. This, I think a lot of this came from a lot of the incentive behind the House file came from there's more and more personnel in schools that are being kicked, hit, bit, and districts aren't putting things in place to deal with it. I think, again, it comes more from probably Des Moines, bigger schools that have voiced concern about some of the behaviors. And so legislation was put into place requiring districts to do certain things to address those. This will address those. It lays it out. Yeah. And there's an attachment that goes with it that the Department of Education helped put together to ensure that more of definitions and explanation of this policy. So as Josh scrolls down, you can see where it talks about grade spans and levels. It does provide examples, escalation there. You see level 1, level 2. A level 1, level 2, and level 3 are different for a pre-K 2 student than it would be for a 3rd, 4th, 5th student. And so, although the bands don't fit us perfectly right now, they will in a year or two, in 2 years when we move 3rd grade up. So we're going to go ahead and just apply those grade spans because we'll be under one roof in those Department of Ed defined grade spans soon enough. So again, this is just and ISB gave us the skeleton. We filled in the blanks and then had Allers review it for us. Yeah.
603, Coons arrives. Thank you, Dan.
I think it's good to get the admin team work on that, so. We should you guys do it. Wait, I know that. I'm gonna go back to the main screen there. I'll make a motion to approve the Police Review Board Policy 503.8 R1 as presented.
Motion by Alaska,
Second.
second by roll calls. Discussion.
So it's kind of just, I'm just seeing the difference between it doesn't necessarily spell out the action that will be taken if one of these levels have been met. Is that on a different policy or?
It's more defined on this,
Attachment.
that one right there, the attachment.
Okay.
So there's a couple.
So that's where you have to reference both.
Yes.
I saw that on there.
Yep.
Okay.
And part of this policy too puts into place reporting.
Yes.
So a lot more communication with parent.
Yeah, I mean, both parents from both, student who commits the violence, and the student who is on the receiving end, the victim. A lot more of that communication, but then there's some discussion around, when a student makes the, a threat, determining is that really a credible threat or is it more serious, and trying to determine how we communicate with the parents of students in a classroom that maybe that threat was made. Again, looking at the age level or grade span of the students and determining what type of communication needs to happen, along with discipline procedures, consequences that may happen. And that's where it's that scaled piece, a scaled response to discipline.
And that's a good, so before, just so that we have a thorough understanding of the law, we actually had Catherine from Allers come here. And she spent a couple hours with us one morning, the whole admin team, and walked us through the legislation. And then we really could, I mean, it was a great conversation. We were able to, hey, what about this scenario? Or I've got this case, and we really had a great conversation, give us good understanding. And that was, and then after that, we were able to better fill in the blanks. And then we checked back with her and she kind of just reviewed some things, but
in the second section where it says considerations of determining whether the off-campus threat of violence or implication of violence will directly affect the good order and efficient management or welfare of the school district, is that,
is that what level were you at?
It's the second, on the second page of the policy. It's around the freedom of speech. There, right there.
On the attachment or the policy?
Yeah, just right there.
Right here.
Oh, it reasonable likelihood that the threat will interfere with the
Yeah,
operation
so
of
if
the.
something happens off campus. Whether or
Yes,
not that's a direct.
if it
directly
if it
affects
interferes with our school day or school
Student.
environment. So if something happens
Students.
off campus
Okay.
that causes an interference with our school day, like for instance, if a threat is made off campus that causes our school to be canceled or delayed, or mass communication go out, or attendance affected because half the kids stay home, that's an impact.
Well, I mean, it's a significant disruption to the learning environment. Standard that we look at.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes these things can be so.
Yeah.
Subjective.
Yes.
So when we go to the other sheet, there's a lot of main through the following, main through the following. And I realize every situation is different. I guess, how do we envision that working, right? Okay, so if an incident happens, how are we going down that list? Who's involved in that? So if there's, and does that vary by the grade levels in terms of who's involved in that determination of what that response might be?
Well, I mean, as far as determining, we're gonna take into age, we're gonna take into development, we're gonna take into emotional maturity, we're gonna take into disability, we're gonna take into a lot of factors.
Yeah, I'm like.
And then if it's at the elementary, I mean, depending on the severity, me, Josh, Holly, teacher, I mean, those most familiar with that kid or those kids.
Those attorneys would often say it depends.
Yeah.
I know, I'm thinking, you get a first grader who's mad at their buddy and makes a directed threat and it falls into level 2, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm gonna notify the parents, and then I've got this list.
Well, if you go in, because I think the initial response is investigate, right?
Yep.
As an administrator in the building, investigating and talking to the student that, that allegedly said the thing or did the thing. Then also investigating and talking with the student that may have been involved or a victim to that. Talking with the teacher, getting kind of a gist of what the story was. I mean, was it an instance where the student was just angry at their friend and said, I'm gonna kill you, that kind of thing? Versus, this has kind of been ongoing, we're drawing pictures of burning the school, down, or having, a significant outburst related to that. And then, I mean, the purpose of this document here is, level 1, level 2 is the escalation, starting at level 1 first, okay, here's kind of the consequence, here's what we found out, here's how we've handled it. Oh, it happened again within this time frame or within this grade span or whatever, over time. Oh, there's another, and now here's another. So that it just is a progressive discipline that we talk about as administrators that we go through. We want to provide the student, because I think the purpose of this is to provide discipline in terms of teaching and learning for kids and helping them as they develop and understand their emotions and feelings. After we understand you're angry, but you can't do these types of things.
Well, it looks like it's giving you guys a little bit of clarity on a certain incident that you can kind of plug and play of, hey, here's what we procedure, and it may not even change with what you're doing now.
Right.
But just like you said, with this one's gonna require a parent or guardian notification.
It's
Mhm.
more.
That way it's more direct and you have a plan.
And it does spell out, so in the first incident that Tim used, if a child threatens another child, then the child making the threat, that parent's gonna be notified. The child receiving the threat, that child's parents are gonna be notified. Now, if that same child would make that threat in the classroom with 15, 16 other kids, 16 kids as parents are gonna be notified. Because they were part of, so a lot of notification in this House file, new legislation really went into effect.
Yeah, I think that's pretty big.
A big thing is just the notification that's gonna be required.
Principals and administration was,
Yeah.
okay. We can't just, a student in passing says whatever and you're okay. You're not, it's not a credible threat, you're just angry.
Our notification strategy is really buttoned up.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
So-
Make sure we're
Yes,
not over analyzing or
Correct.
under analyzing.
yeah.
That's, yeah.
And that's why it was good that instead of looking at webinar slides or joining a webinar, we just had our attorney come down and let's just talk through these scenarios. And again, to me, the question always with what would you be most comfortable with if you have to sit by any of us and defend us? What action would you want us to take in this scenario?
Mhm.
And we had a good conversation around that. Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions or discussion?
So I've heard that somebody said it.
Yeah, we got registration discussion. Any last ones? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Informational items. There's an Iowa School Board Association convention coming up on Thursday and Wednesday/Friday. And so. This is where we're gonna talk about. So Cassie, you're going down for the delegate assembly.
Wednesday morning? She's busy.
No,
No, no.
all right, I'll go by myself. I got this one.
I got you,
Well-
or Davis had me get you rooms at the Fairfield Inn where you guys liked before.
Just catty corner right there from Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
We have a van for Thursday.
van for.
Well, I'm sorry,
Wednesday.
Wednesday, that's
Say
tomorrow.
later in the day.
So you're going in the morning tomorrow.
I am bright early, gotta be there by 9.
Yes.
So what time do you want the van to take off?
Only with you, whatever you guys want to do. I'm flexible.
Last year we left around 1. didn't we?
Flexible in the afternoon.
We left around 1 last year, didn't we?
That's fine.
Yeah, when you want to talk here.
It's down there around 3.
Check in. Get to the exhibit hall, check over.
Yeah, you sleep 1 o'clock from here.
Okay.
So I'll probably be able to come at 1, but I'll have to drive myself because I'll have to leave early Thursday.
Yeah.
But I can get out, I should be able to get out tomorrow by 1, so.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes, so I'll be
Yeah.
able to spend.
So you'll use your room?
If,
Yeah, I probably will.
Perfect.
Dan.
Okay.
If you can ride with them, you can take the car back and I can ride.
Tim needs to take the car back.
Never mind.
Well, it's going straight to Washington County, so
Oh, okay.
direct.
Yeah.
Because I always say for those meetings on Friday, since
Mhm.
I'm free on.
Got it.
Friday.
Okay, you get the car.
So 1 o'clock. All right.
Okay,
Do you guys want to leave your cars here, or do you want Davis to pick you up at your house so you're not leaving your vehicle here?
I'll just get dropped off.
Okay.
Good thinking.
I'll leave my car here, because otherwise I won't have anybody to get home on Friday when I get back.
Yeah,
And then
That's
dinner reservations tomorrow night at 7:45 at Tupelo Honey.
And where?
Tupelo Honey. Downtown.
Southern Comfort
Southern
Food.
Comfort food. Could be.
It's good food.
Could be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
And then,
Seven quarterback, Tommy.
Yeah.
and then Bree,
Auburn.
and then Bree is going down with.
I'm bringing her
Chris.
down on Thursday morning. Mhm. We gotta get all that free stuff.
You ever eat lunch with
Then
us?
you can't not go.
Then,
You're
yeah.
writing this choice already?
He's busy.
Okay. Next up is board learning. Whose job is it anyway?
Part 1 and part 2.
This is the fun part.
You have your handouts?
It's underneath.
You're under-
Oh, it's under here. Oh, here we go.
So page 2, just start reading scenario 1 and
So,
Did I give you them?
There you go.
Did you?
Okay,
Yeah, I just
you just gotta find them.
closed out of it.
Mhm.
Page 2, scenario 1.
we can follow along, so put it up on the screen.
There you go.
To the PDF or did you, the top one or you want PDF?
I just said PDF. That's
So. I'll read it out loud because I feel like it's necessary. Dreamfield School District has made funds available to purchase. One-to-one laptops, the middle school, the decision will now need to be made regarding whether funds will be invested in laptops, notebooks, or tablets. One of the board members is an IT specialist for a major company whose job is to ensure that the correct information is made available to the board in this decision. Choices are the board or the administration.
Administration. Are we supposed to answer? Is this
Yeah.
supposed both?
Administration. What is administration?
What is?
So administration. What is the board's role? So
Well, I think we've all kind of been here, where a little bit of our expertise falls across the board. So I think we can be information, you know what I mean? But, I think a fine line between giving information and trying to be influential. And so I think those are kind of the hardest parts of what we do. But I think it's, since I've been here, we've done a pretty good job of saying, all right, this is what I know about this and you know, here's the information that I think you should look at, you know what I mean, but leaving our hands off the administration's.
and sometimes even it's the questions, right, which is these are the questions you need to ask.
Right, right.
Make sure you have answers to these things. Because you know. One of our rules is to ask how they came to that decision. Why is this the best decision? And so. You know, rather than waiting until they make the decision and then coming back with 10 questions that you could ask them on the front end. Better to get those out from when the discussion's going on.
what I would think too, when we say admin, it's been communicated through, what does the staff need, depending on grade level and, you know, since middle school, but
Mhm.
I'm sure you're gonna get input from all the different teachers of their curriculum and stuff, so.
Okay, what's the answer? Not ours, professional staff committee, admin. In our case, Sean.
You win.
And at the end, they notice that board member forward questions to the superintendent for consideration for the committee to think about, yeah.
Okay, that's the next one.
Start scenario 2.
Yep,
You read it?
go ahead.
Betty Smith approaches board member Birdie with a request. She believes her daughter is not being treated fairly by her softball coach, who is also her math teacher. Betty wants to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with the coach just to get things out in the open. However, she really wants a witness, in quotes, with some authority to be a part of the conversation. She would like Birdie, as the board member from the director district, to be that person. Whose job is to help Mrs. Smith get a full and fair hearing from the coach? What might the whole board do in this situation?
Well, it's, I mean, having been in these shoes, in a sense, having a principal want to talk to me, you know, about something, and then, it's administration's job. But once you enter in that conversation, you actually now have to be removed from anything that could be considered, you know, if there was an issue with the coach or something was wrong, you have to be removed from all that stuff, because you can't be objective. You know, because when you sit down for, you know, discussions about a teacher or whatever, you have to be objective, and if you know the information and that stuff, so. I think it's important that you know, try to stay out of those things, even though, you know, it may be semi-appropriate for somebody to be there, and maybe that's your good friend, and maybe you know the softball coach, and you feel like you can iron those things out. And then the next thing you've now just, you know, excuse yourself from any meaningful role on the board.
I'll say this, I've said it before, but I think Davis does a really good job of keeping us in the know, just like kind of the basics, because if things do come up our way, we gotta help make a decision. A lot of times, I don't know as much as anybody in the community knows, which is probably a really good thing, just on a need to know basis. Maybe names aren't even involved. So, yeah, I think staying out of this stuff is the best solution for sure, especially for a board member.
I think the challenge always becomes, you know somebody and they want you involved, and you can kind of provide guidance to say, these are the procedures, this is who you need to talk to, you know, and then the chain of command, you can go to this next person, if you can't get it resolved, there you can go there. But the board is way at the end of this line, and I can't be be involved. I'm happy to tell you what the process is, but I can't be your advocate. Because once you cross that line and you begin to advocate, you are now.
Well, even just hearing the information that you. Yeah.
Once you know too much.
Notice when I first got elected to the board, the first time, instantly, I got these phone calls. You gotta, this coach, that coach, and I'm like, I am not your person. This is not what I do. This is who you talk to. This is the chain of command. This is how it goes. So I'm sorry, but that's not my wheelhouse. Here you go. I had a lot of, like, the first month that I was on the board, that
We
was
get a lot of folks.
like all my conversations.
Some not so, there's no.
Yeah, but now people know that's what I'm gonna tell them, so I don't get that off and things.
And that's one of the things ISD always point out, which is, as soon as you start doing this, then word gets around and everybody wants you to be their advocate, so you just start. So the sooner you just kind of remind them what the process and the chain of command is, the sooner you're gonna be able to stay in your role rather than getting sucked into things that are not yours.
I work with a board of directors. I know not to go to them.
You did pretty well on that one. Greenfield District Superintendent plans to recommend staff cuts at the next board meeting. 5 teachers have formed a Save Our Staff committee and have approached 2 board members who also happen to be ex-staff members. They've asked these 2 board members to look at some data they have put together regarding ways in which the district can save money without making cuts, and thus better serve the needs of all students. As former staff members, the 2 board members have a special insight into the situation, whose job is it to review the data and make sure it is part of the board discussion. what might the goal be this part of the situation? Ben and Bree are welcome to share thoughts as well.
Well, you just said the board can't be involved, so.
Yeah, I think the right way, I would just say, hey, take that information to the superintendent. You know, we'll want to see that information too, but, you know,
Mhm.
because no suits or fire anybody, so if they had a big way, and they could find a safe job. I would imagine as part of the process, though, that information would come back to us. In a different, you know, I mean, like, not necessarily this, but okay, and well, you know, we'd have questions.
It's also entirely possible having had to go through budget cuts after we had 10% across the board cut.
Right.
The finance committee
Right.
and, you know, people always have things, it's like, well, those are all things that we're already doing to save money, and there's still these other things we're gonna have to do to deal with the 10% across the board cut. And so referring to the superintendent's they can always come to the board, you can always say, you know, you can share this with the entire board, and you can come in during public comment and share, you know, and share it, you know, that's an option, but you know, if you want to have an impact, directly to the superintendent, because there may be creative things that weren't thought of, and if we can save a staff member in a situation, you try to do that.
It's tough, so you guys know. 80% of our budget is personnel. And so that leaves 20% of our budget for buildings and heating and cooling and diesel for the buses and, you know, all the transportation we do and all the materials, the copies, the book, all that other stuff. So, you know, when you get in a situation where your budget starts getting tight and diesel fuel goes from $3 a gallon to $6 a gallon, and so now you're cutting into that 20% that you were already budgeting. And so sometimes it gets tough like that. And so if 80% is your budget, 80% of your budget is personnel, sometimes the only way you can cut is personnel, which thankfully we haven't been in that position for 7-8 years. And we try to stay as healthy as we possibly, so we can, when diesel does double in cost, we can absorb it. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So I can see a different perspective in receiving the information, but then turning it around and sharing it with the administration to say, I received this, here's something you may want to consider. And leaving it for them, that way it's a full transparent loop that is happening. But not necessarily just saying, I can't talk to you about it, but.
Well, I look at it as a committee, maybe, right, in our situation. Would that information go to a committee with maybe you and Dan on it, or you and Jamie, and then it gets passed to the board as kind of a pass through? Hey, make sure you guys are reviewing this information or get it to the right, you know, people.
Right.
That's another way to look at it, but ultimately, I think it's got to come down to everybody. So.
Right, yeah. First, I want to validate is this credible source, because it said inside, you know.
Yeah.
What is this? Valid source of information, or is this?
They did their own number crunching.
Yeah, but I think it would, I mean, I think you're right, it would go to the, so the probably go to the finance committee. And we would know, and then we would present our information that the administration had helped us, you know, kind of go through.
I think the important thing would be, you want everyone to have the same information, so at some point, even if the finance committee would look at it and say, these are not feasible options, you know. Maybe you've got 4 fourth grade teachers, and your fourth grade class only has, you know, 60 kids in it, and it's like, we don't really need, you know, we don't need to keep another, you know, that class just can't bear it, so I guess we'd like to keep that person, we don't have the students to do it, because generally staff cuts are very in a drop in enrollment district. But you want to make sure you share it out with the whole board, even if you say we see there's transparency there as well, so that information gets shared.
There's ISB.
The only difference is because we do have particularly finance committee, on some of these issues. The finance committee along with the superintendent, we want to bring in the admin has a chance to go through the numbers. We don't want to put a fixed value. Or just I wouldn't want to take a face value because school finance is complicated and for sure. And maybe they're trying to, maybe their numbers are, we're gonna save money in the general fund by not buying a bus out of the Pebble fund. Well, that doesn't help us at all, because you can't pay for a staff member out of Pebble.
Suggestion box, always open.
There we go, 4. Adam, you want to
Yeah.
change the lights? We're gonna have to change all
The superintendent has developed a plan for ongoing review of building maintenance over a 5-year period. Before presenting this plan for board approval, he called board member Jack Spratt into his office. Jack has always been very interested in building maintenance and has offered some specific opinions and suggestions to the plan, which the superintendent has not included. The superintendent hopes to conduct a tour of the buildings with Jack in tow and reach some compromise on the areas which are the most concern for Jack. Whose job is it to present individual amendments to the plan? And what might the whole board do in this situation?
Well,
One issue is no individual board member has veto power, so you can have. You can have a recommendation, right, and you can offer amendments and say, I think we should do this instead, but if the board as a whole doesn't fall along, then you just 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 7 that says we should do it this way instead. Then that's something that the board will decide at the board table in terms of amendments.
I think it's off the rails to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the scenario is already off the rails a little bit, so I think for us, which would help us, is that we would make this an informational point. Where we could all discuss these things before we give action on it, as opposed to. But I think if this would happen, I don't know if. Having the superintendent having 1 board member in tow to try and convince him. It's kind of bothersome to me also, you know what I mean? Just because it's not involving all of us.
Well, think about the Lakeview project, that's what my mind's going to, you get that booklet that's that thick, and we've got pictures of everything, right? Cracks in walls, you got plumbing, HVAC stuff, so. Transparency and just put it all out there, here's what we've got, here's the budget. As much as I'd like Jim just to take control of it. So. We laugh because in all these other building projects, we had Jim Howard, who has a construction background, so he knew all this stuff. And it's kind of an inside joke.
Yeah.
I think there's that difference between, you want to get their insight, if you're going through and you want their insight of how you might optimize the project, when you're trying to get their insight versus knowing that they have issues and you're trying to convince 1 board member. It's a little more of a challenge because it's not the scenario we've experienced.
And it could be, Jack could take more approaches in the first scenario that we discussed with, say, we have an IT specialist on the board and we're gonna buy computers. Well, that IT specialist can present, hey, if you're gonna do that, think about these things and make sure, you think about these things or ask these questions and such like that. This person could take the same approach. We're gonna look at these buildings, make sure you're checking, looking at the roofs and making sure we've got this, making sure, just check all those things as you're putting that plan together. Yeah.
I was just gonna say anything that specifically answered whose job is it to individual amendments is superintendent based on his or her recommendation. She wants to control
And obviously, as you're saying, it comes before the board can vote approval or decline to approve it and send it back with suggestions for what we'd like to see different, It's just like the policy review, right? We had questions about what should be the right amounts, we had a recommendation. We said go back and When approved, we want you to look at these numbers and then come back with it. We didn't say you have to change them. We said go back based on this consideration and review the plan and come back with something different. That addresses those concerns, and that's the way to handle it, which is if there's a specific current concern, so send it back to them. Rather than. I think we points about that. 3 or 5. During the board open forum, one of the Greenfield board members brings up the idea of adding soccer to extracurricular offerings at Greenfield. It has been suggested before, but has always been viewed as an unwise addition in financially stressed times. Another board member, Amos, athletic, enthusiastically offers to be a coach for this new team and to do some research with similar sized districts that have already made commitment to a soccer team. He can acquire costs, estimates for busing, equipment outlay, etc. So the board has a clear idea of what we're talking about financially, whose job is it to take the next steps, provide an opportunity for Greenfield students. What might the whole board do in this situation? I remember when we added soccer. That's before we.
The administration has the job to take the next steps, providing those opportunities to students. I don't know about students, but board approval, then whether or not they have a program, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's typo or if that's.
Been very,
Are we taking the opportunity to students, or are we taking it to the board?
No, I think the idea is. I think in the context of the opportunity for students, I think they're saying add the programs, but they're saying just have to translate that. Whose idea is, whose job is it to push this forward? Is it the administration or the board members is what we're looking at?
Well, I think, first of all, I think the whole board has to say, we would like the administration to look into not just one member. And so you almost have to agree on that, right? Or at least agree that we want the administration to look into it. And then it would be your job to find that information. And then our role would be to vote on that information without this.
I think that's the key to the board. You know, we've got to look at the balance of that, right? The financial implications for it. In the past, there were even more, there were contractual issues with it. We couldn't have 8 positions without the union in the past. So there were issues with that as well. I think it changed over time, but there's financial trade-offs here. Okay. We're going to part 2.
Page 3.
I can read the scenario if you want.
Okay. I was gonna make Dan read it.
Yeah, he can't read though.
We will have Chris read it for us.
Yeah, the Dreamfield School Board has been hearing a lot about the need to make sure students graduate college and career ready. They also learned that staff leadership recently identified literacy as an area of student need after studying district assessment data results. The board then read a portion of the Iowa Core that describes the literacy skills of students who are college and career ready in reading, writing, speaking, and listening and language. After much discussion, the board decides to make improved literacy a district-wide student learning goal for the 2 to 5 years in Dreamfield. All students will be college and career ready in reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. Now they are asking themselves, what actions or areas of work might we look for that would indicate something is being done in working towards this goal, and why?
But actions or areas of work might we look for that would indicate something is being done. Word off with your. Say that again. So these are word off with your.
Yep.
Mhm.
So indication that we are doing something about and addressing and taking action on our newfound literacy goal.
Mhm.
I would say that we are actively discussing and looking at our benchmark data throughout the year.
Mhm.
How would the, so,
Softball for you.
so the question is, how would we as a board, how would we as a board know that? So the administration is doing that, so at the board table, you know, is that a report to the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it seems like we've done a lot of things like, we want it in this quarter and this quarter, or we want, you know, what I mean,
Yeah.
what 2 times do you think are the best
Yeah.
time of year for us to reevaluate, relook at this?
Yeah.
And I think the other, right,
I was just saying an admin report, you know, we present, hey, here are the steps that we're taking, the PD we're bringing in, here's the data points that we will be looking at to measure
Right.
success or not success.
Mhm.
Focus on learning could be some teachers demonstrating some things that we're doing different, or just to be all part of informational to the board. And like you said, periodic.
I think
We've adopted this
Yeah.
curriculum, here's our approach to learning. Here's how we're going to address the reading deficiencies we have.
I think
I think Iowa is amongst many states who have a read by tree kind of act out there that
Mhm.
says all students will be reading by grade 3, which is, there's a science behind students then transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And how higher vocabulary, higher comprehension skills are what are needed at that higher age range, to be college and career ready. Is,
Yeah.
I think there's a I don't know, I'll be on my soapbox, but I will keep it short. There's a lot of states that are going away from using that college career ready language because it's just not really applicable to the foundational skills that you do in elementary school.
Mhm.
So.
I'll say to you, with some of the, when you have college kids come back, if you come back in a year and it's over Christmas break and get a little feedback of being ready, or like just. You feel like you're prepared. I think that does add a little feedback. I mean, I did that a little bit, it's a long time ago, but. Are we giving you the right tools to make that transition? You know, and what areas can we improve upon?
So now you see that when you're gonna graduate, they're using instead of saying, yeah, academically, there are college and career academic skills that they need, but beyond that, there is also a lot of life skills, 21st century skills that are getting overlooked, that are equally as important, having learned that in there. Where I would also see us having an action plan specific to the grade band in which we are conditioning kids. Pre-K to grade 2, 3 through 5, middle school, and then on up. Because those grade bands are way different when it comes to how you approach learning. That's his area.
so I think the other area is the budget, right, which is how we spending our budget, does it reflect that priority? You can say we have a priority, and if we don't put any time or effort, times like, if there's no PD towards it, if we're not finding new curriculum, if we're not pushing it forward, we can say we want to do this, but if the dollars aren't devoted to the annual budget, then it's not happening.
Right, and then saying, okay, where are we at the moment? So what's a snapshot in time? Setting a goal to say, where do we want to be? And then tracking the delta in between there is really holding yourself accountable for the goal to obtain it.
And that goes back to the kind of the 5 things IASB always tells us to the board's job, set expectations, hold the system accountable, create conditions for success, build collective will and then learn about it. So if it's a priority, are we learning about it during our board learning time? When we get that, when we're learning about it, when the admin comes and reports on it? And what is college and career ready mean for our students?
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And I mean, this is a little bit of an offset, but I think it's important to say here, this is a brand new board, right? We have 2 years together. I think it's important for you,
We're still an old board, so that's.
well, I mean, right, but I think it's important that admin knows. I would think it'd be very odd that you hit it all the time. You know what I mean? Like if we get data that's not good, that's okay with us.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
In fact, it would be somewhat expected sometimes, like, I wouldn't want it all the time,
Mhm.
but that it's okay with us. That we'll regroup and rally and say, all right, so what do we do now? You know, what I mean, is the path we're on, the path we should be on? Or do we just minor tweaks, or do we need a pivot, or, you know what I mean? So I'm just, as we head down those paths, as we, you know, look at some of our data coming out, or data we have looked at, you know what I mean, and be like, because what we want to be able to do is be honest with ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes we become, what's like, why does someone keep an employee that they hired, even though they're a bad employee? Because it's like admitting to yourself that you hired someone that's a bad employee, right? So you keep stringing them along, you know what I mean? Let's make sure that we, in the next 2 years, that when we look at this stuff, we look at it honestly. You know what I mean? We're okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, all right, it's just working, it's just not working. Math is just the way it should be. You know, science, are we there yet? You know, English, are we there? Or should we be, you know, what I mean? Those things. We're okay with that. You know what I mean? And,
Well, I think too, like, good job, but
No.
like, just since I've been on the board, look at how much changed, like, with the state assessment.
For sure.
Right, like, so then,
right.
it's hard to go back on.
For sure.
We're all gonna,
Well, how
all of
many
a sudden, it's a whole new thing.
3 state assessments in? Is that right? How long is the ISS?
3 years, are we 3 years in?
Since they changed.
Yeah.
that-
Yeah. We've taken it 4 times.
Yeah.
And then somebody's done electronically, right, like, or writing.
No.
3 years?
Last
Yeah,
year was our first year.
No,
wasn't it?
last year's our second year. So
With
we did
the
2 years
full
with just
year.
paper,
Okay.
and the last 2 years with.
Yeah, and so those are all things to look at, and so that's, you know.
Well, and I remember like when I was in high school, I didn't really care about some of that stuff, but for us and like staff and board and parents, like that's a way for us to grade on, you know, because I'm always a numbers doesn't lie kind of guy, you know, that's.
Okay.
You want to see the data, but
Well, those are the conversations we've been having a lot this fall, and we shared a little bit with Cassie when she came in last week. And just what you said, I mean, we're always telling ourselves, we gotta first accept the data.
Right.
We accept it, and then we can better
Yeah.
set course on how to
Yeah.
correct. And although we've been, you know, doing a lot of patting ourselves on the back as far as our proficiency rates and looking great, 90+ percentile and all that stuff. We're part of a pilot. We were invited to be a pilot with a new data type breakdown called EVOS, and they put all of our ISAS data into it. And now we're able to look at growth. And we were this morning, Josh was taking us through a portion of, he went to a training this summer to learn how to kind of use it. And we can break down, for instance, we were looking at 4th grade. We're looking at this year's 5th grade kids. So their scores from last spring in 4th grade. And it was putting them into the whole class, 100 kids, into 5 categories. It was like high, mid-high, mid-low, low. And it's like, oh, there's 26 kids in that high group. We can click on who they are, what their growth was, positive or negative, and who they had for a teacher last year. And so we're looking at this data, and it's like, oh, this group right here, this category of kids, 30-some kids, it shows collectively as a group in that category, it was negative. So now we're clicking on them, it's like, no growth, no growth, no growth.
What do they use? Are
Yeah, they
they
just-
categorizing it by national percentile, right?
We're using the national standard score, and so they're using the standard score, and then
The ISAC score, they broke it up in that many categories.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
So
Yeah,
now
so
we're not patting quite as hard, and we're saying, you know, although we've got the vast majority, 90% of our kids are proficient. There's kids within our system that we are not getting the growth that we need to get out of them, and so. Now we have to look at this data, and that's gonna be the topic of our conversation is. What do we need to tighten down? What do we need to do different? How do we address this group?
Well, I just support a teacher if it falls on in a certain classroom.
Absolutely,
You know,
and how
and-
can we help? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely,
Or,
so,
or how do we challenge, you know, if we've got, if it's the higher performing kids are not seeing growth. Are we, how are we organizing our classrooms? How are we spending our time and? You know,
Now,
if they get to a
in-
certain level, they're not self-motivated as much.
Right.
in that group of this year's fifth grade kids. We saw. The vast majority, tremendous growth from that high group. Which kind of surprised me a little, but which was good. So even though they're highly proficient, they're still making a year's growth, and that's what we want from everyone, but there were some groups that it's like, uh-oh. That's not
And
good.
even on the opposite end, you've got kids who are below proficiency, but wow, look at the growth.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
For sure.
So they're growing.
Complements the resources we're pumping into them, but we gotta make sure that we're addressing all.
So the ISAC scores is the only test
That's in that system.
that is in that system, but if I recall that the school report card reports. Or
Yes,
do they
yes.
report on fast data too?
No, I
No.
think just ISAC.
It's all. I think it's just-
So every school. If you do grades 3 all the way through grade 11,
Yes,
you get a report card, and so since the state uses this data, we have to. Care about this data too, because that report card is what defines our ranking. So.
Sorry, I got us off track.
yep, that's right.
Okay,
What are we on?
we're done.
Fine, okay.
We did. So, talking points. Jamie.
Well, actually, something that we didn't necessarily talk about, but it was on the consent agenda that we're gonna have a culinary arts
Oh, yes.
program at the high school now. It's really exciting to me.
Yeah,
I'm excited that our kids are gonna have the opportunity officially now to learn some cooking skills while they're in high school.
Cassie.
Oh, this was fun.
Okay,
We're learning. That was fun.
Bree. You can pass as well.
So this is where you get to talk about what is the highlight of the meeting.
Just learning more about board processes and meeting everybody.
yeah.
I thought it was interesting how almost everything goes to administration. Yeah. These things.
Yeah, people are under the mistaken impression that the board has a lot more authority than it does. We set policy and hold the system accountable, but. The day-to-day
Day-to-day
operations
decisions and.
are made by the superintendent and the other
May I
administrators.
say, you make some really great.
Oh, thank you.
That's all, because we're gonna go eat separate. bars. I don't wanna feel bad.
We have to sit at the same table.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's no island watch tomorrow night, it's tonight. Dan,
Actually, this is one of my favorite times when we all get to go have supper together. Because we can't officially be together. Take the side here, there can't be more than 3 of us.
2 of us.
Or 2 of us, right, there can't be 2 or more than 2. And so it's kind of fun time, we get to like kind of enjoy each other's company and not be like, oh, we can't talk about that.
It gives us a chance to chat socially.
Correct.
I like Cassie's update on SIAC, so it sounds like some really good stuff got going, in that first meeting. I'm looking forward to February and doing other things as it goes along. I did hear from some people that were going, so I know a couple of people that were there, so. I haven't talked to them about first experience or what have you, but
Randy Walters,
that's.
Oh, yeah.
you, you bumped into him the day after.
Went and got my morning coffee at the BP, and Randy was like, yeah, I really enjoyed that, looking at the data, and he goes, I would like to see cohort data. It's like, Give me a couple hours. It's God's on it right now. We talked about that. It'll be sent out sometime today.
Mhm.
I do miss the cohort data that we used to have that followed the classes all the way through, and because we switched to data, it's like. We'd see
We
the.
started over, so.
We
it's-
started over, like, so I don't have the graphs where I can look at this
Yeah.
year's 11th graders and see all their data all the way back to. Elementary school and see how they progress, but um, yeah. So I'm happy to have both Rita and Ben here. It's good to have our student voices here with us. Ben's got one more month with us before he gets to put his nameplate with him at the mini meeting. And Maria's gonna kind of learn the process. We're happy to have her on board. Haven't had a good meeting with her and Davis and Chris. Sometime last week, sometime.
Yeah, it'll be good through tomorrow, I think, or Thursday. Yeah, it'll be good to see them on that. It's always a good experience and having a board rep, I think is good, or at school. Yeah, student rep will be good, so.
You also, go ahead.
Also a student rep, I don't know, I was learning, a couple weeks ago, I went to the National Association of State Boards of Education conference, actually, at work. And I got to hear about how state boards are run in other states. There's a lot of, even sometimes the student has a voting member in certain states. So it's interesting to see where you could take your role from here.
Yeah, that you are you the peer leader group or?
Yeah, I'm on exec council. I do it, I go about once a week with a group of my peers.
Which will be a good connection from school to here too. Yeah.
Her and I are gonna come up with a way that she can get the word out more to the students. Even if it's, I send her the minutes and then she cliff notes them to what she wants to share with them, just sending them the minutes. I don't think they'll necessarily read as much as her just using that information, what her takeaway was. So that's kind of our goal this year, is to have her once a month.
I think it'd be great. We kind of talked about that in the interview meeting. I think that would be great to, hey, here's what I sat through, here's what they're kind of discussing, and then you're the go-to. If they have stuff they want to talk about or present.
I think that's important. We're kind of, this is new, we're only in our finishing our second year, and the goal is to grow this position over time and get what it looks like. So with that, the next regular board meeting is Thursday, December 14th. Which is the second Thursday.
Yep.
You'll remember in June, we set that because that will be our reorganizational meeting.
It's the 14th.
So there, just to let you know, there is a wrestling meet and a concert that night.
If we have it the 20, well, we told the,
Oh,
Yeah.
Because this
Yeah.
is, because the election back in June, we set a December date, 14th, because we needed to have one because the county
Yeah.
told us that they would not have the election results to us in time for us
Right.
to reorganize tonight, so.
Okay.
and Tim and I talked about that. We will make it like nothing but a really quick
Business.
business stuff.
On the 14th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the 21st is the day before Christmas break starts. Yeah,
Where,
I think
where's the
maybe
wrestling?
maybe I'm mistaken. I think, well, where's wrestling?
Yeah.
I don't know that too long.
Okay, it's fine.
I'm still
Let's take
papers
up-
calendar. I like to write these down. I think, but I was seeing a conflict. Maybe that notes. Are you wrestling?
There's a wrestling triangular. There's a wrestling triangular in Independence. At 6 o'clock, and then there's instrumental music. At 6:15 in the Center for the Arts.
See, I was right.
7:30 for 7th through 12th grade, 6:15 for 5th and 6th grade.
we'll be done by then.
So yeah, the goals have to be a.
Real quick.
fairly business thing.
If you're interested in committees, if you want to share them with me and I'll take notes for,
What if you're disinterested in?
We're at crosswalk on the policy.
Send her a note.
that as well. I have given someone a little clue on board policy, though it's real this year, so.
So maybe you're gonna tell me I want this one? Is that what you're trying to sell?
It's finally gonna pay off for you.
Yeah, that's right. Then they'll be like, I asked you, you decided that we needed to redo.
Yeah.
It's a
I'll
100,
entertain a
200.
motion to adjourn.
Real small.
So
Motion by Alaska, second by Wolf. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Adjourn.